also present a report on its 13th session, and this will be followed by a general debate on item 9 of the Human Rights Council agenda on racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related forms of intolerance. And on Monday, we will begin the consideration of the last item of the Council agenda on technical assistance and capacity building. At 10 a.m., Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights Nadal Nashif will present an oral update on the situation in Ukraine. This will be followed by an enhanced interactive dialogue on the Democratic Republic of the Congo with the participation of the Deputy High Commissioner, the team of international experts on the DRC, and the country concerned. And on Monday afternoon, the Council will hear an oral update on the situation in South Sudan from Christian Salazar-Volkmann, the Director of the Field Operations and Technical Cooperation Division at OHCHR. And this will be followed by an interactive dialogue with Vitit Muntarbon, the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Cambodia, who will present you his latest reports. Regarding decisions and resolutions for this 54th session, the deadline for the submission of draft resolution proposal was extended until yesterday at 1 p.m. for 8 proposals. A total of 37 proposals for draft decision and resolutions have been submitted to the Secretariat of the Council for consideration at the end of this 54th session, and pen holders of resolutions who wish to submit written revisions of their draft proposal can do so until 1 p.m. on Monday. And written amendments to this draft proposal can be submitted until 3 p.m. on Monday as well. Regarding the submitted draft proposal, 11 of them concern country or regional situations, namely Sudan, Afghanistan, Russia, Burundi, Honduras, Cambodia, Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Somalia, and Yemen, and the establishment of an OHCHR regional office in the Caribbean region. And 11 of these 37 draft resolutions included a mandate renewal for the team of international experts on the DRC, for Afghanistan, the Special Rapporteur on Burundi, and the Special Rapporteur on the Russian Federation, just to name the country situations. And among the novelties among these draft resolutions, we have the proposal to establish the fact-finding mission on Sudan that will be comprised of 3 members with expertise in international human rights law. And the mandate of this fact-finding mission will be to investigate and establish the facts, circumstances, and root causes of all alleged human rights violations and abuses that started in the context of the ongoing armed conflict that started on April 15, 2023. We have another new draft resolution on Honduras, which is a request from the country concerned regarding technical cooperation on the penitentiary system. And the third new resolution concerns the centrality of care measures and their importance from a human rights perspective. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pascal. Any question? Christian, is this a hand up? No? Okay, I don't see any. Let me see on the platform. John Zarokostas.
Yes, good morning. I was wondering if I missed something you said, but the renewal of the Commission of Inquiry on Ethiopia, is there a resolution for its renewal, or is that not likely to happen? Human rights organizations have been highly critical of the lack of interest in renewing it.
The Secretariat of the Human Rights Council has not received any draft resolution proposal regarding Ethiopia or regarding the renewal of the Commission of Experts.
Thank you. And I'll let you go, Pascal. But let's stay on the situation of human rights, and this in particular in Ukraine. You've seen we have circulated the statement by the Secretary General condemning the attack in the Kupiansk district. And now we have another comment on another attack from the OHCHR. Liz, you have the floor. And that is yesterday.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. The appalling scenes from the village of Hrosa in the Kharkiv region of Ukraine underscore once again the terrible price civilians are paying 20 months after Russia's invasion. According to the local authorities, 52 people were killed when what appeared to be a Russian missile struck a cafe in the village where people had gathered for a wake. So far, our colleagues in the Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine have established the names of 35 people who were killed, and that's 19 women, 15 men, and an 8-year-old boy. They've also established the names of 5 women and 1 man who were injured. One Ukrainian soldier who was attending his father's funeral was among those killed, according to the authorities. Now, what is clear is that the strike is one of the deadliest since the 24th of February 2022. But of course, it is far from being the only one. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, who saw for himself the horrific impact of such strikes, is profoundly shocked and condemns these killings. He's deployed a field team to the site to speak to survivors and gather more information. Before the Russian invasion, the village's population was about 300. It's not clear how many residents were still living there, but it's clear that with the high number of people killed, everybody in this small community has been affected. We know that at least 8 families had more than 1 relative killed in the attack. We stress once again that international humanitarian law, in particular the rules on conduct of hostilities, must be strictly respected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Any question? I see Christophe.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Norwegian Nobel Institute. My name is Erik Aasheim. I'm the head of media and communication. It's a pleasure to welcome you all here to the announcement of this year's Nobel Peace Prize. At 11 o'clock exactly, the most famous Norwegian door in the world, as we like to say it, will be open, and Mrs. Berit Reiss-Andersen, the chair of the Nobel Committee, will enter the room through the door behind me and make the announcement of this year's laureate or laureates. She will be followed by Olav Njølstad, the secretary of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. And the announcement will be in English only. Printed version of the text will be handed out when the name of the laureate or laureates has been announced. It will also be available online at our website, nobelpeaceprize.org, at 11:01, more or less. The announcement will be followed by a short Q&A. Please give a sign if you want to raise a question, and a microphone will be handed over to you. All questions should be posed in English. Please remember also to introduce yourself by name and affiliation. And just after, it will be one-to-one interviews in this room. If you plan to report live while the committee chair is announcing the prize, please do so from the terrace. We have a tent out there, as mentioned in the accreditation documents. After the press conference, those wishing to sit down and work on their computer are welcome to do so in the library downstairs. You can stay there as long as needed this afternoon. In case of emergency, the fire exit is out the main doors and at the back stairs. If an emergency situation occurs, the meeting point will be at the entrance to the National Theatre Station, just around the corner here, direction the Royal Castle. And if needed, we also have a heart starter, as we say. It's not the correct English name, but everyone understands what it is. It's out in the corridor if that should be needed. We don't hope so. And a final instruction, as from now and until the committee chair has made her announcement, you are not supposed to leave this room. Sorry for that. Thank you. We start 11 precisely.
insan, zendagi, azadi. Women, life, freedom. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2023 to Narges Mohammadi for her fight against the oppression of women in Iran and her fight to promote human rights and freedom for all. Her brave struggle has come with tremendous personal cost. Altogether, the regime has arrested her 13 times, convicted her 5 times, and sentenced her to a total of 31 years in prison and 154 lashes. Ms. Mohammadi is still in prison as I speak. In September 2022, a young Kurdish woman, Masha Gina Amini, was killed in the custody of the Iranian morality police. Her killing triggered the largest political demonstrations against Iran's theocratic regime since it came to power in 1979. Under the slogan, "Woman, Life, Freedom," hundreds of thousands of Iranians took part in peaceful protests against the authorities' brutality and oppression of women. The regime cracked hard down on the protests. More than 500 demonstrators were killed. Thousands were injured, including many who were blinded by rubber bullets fired by the police. At least 20,000 people were arrested and held in custody. The motto adopted by the demonstrators, "Woman, Life, Freedom," suitably expresses the dedication and work of Narges Mohammadi. Woman, she fights for women against systematic discrimination and oppression. Life, she supports women's struggle for the right to live full and dignified lives. This struggle across Iran has been met with persecution, imprisonment, torture, and even death. Freedom. She fights for freedom of expression and the right to independence, and against rules requiring women to remain out of sight and cover up their bodies. The freedom demands expressed by demonstrators apply not only to women, but to the entire population. In the 1990s, as a young physics student, Narges Mohammadi was already distinguishing herself as an advocate for equality and women's rights. After concluding her studies, she worked as an engineer as well as a columnist in various reform-minded newspapers. In 2003, she became involved with the Defense of Human Rights Center in Tehran, an organization founded by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Shirin Ebadi. In 2011, Ms. Mohammadi was arrested for the first time and sentenced to many years of imprisonment for her efforts to assist incarcerated activists and their families. 2 years later, after her release on bail, Ms. Mohammadi immersed herself in a campaign against the use of death penalty. Iran has long been among the countries that execute the highest proportion of their inhabitants annually. Just since January 2022, more than 860 prisoners have been punished by death in Iran. Her activism against the death penalty led to the rearrest of Ms. Mohammadi in 2015 and to a sentence of additional years behind walls. Upon her return to prison, she began opposing the regime's systematic use of torture and sexualized violence against political prisoners, and especially women, that is practiced in Iranian prisons. Last year's wave of protests became known to the political prisoners held inside the notorious Evin prison in Tehran. Once again, Ms. Mohammadi assumed leadership. From prison, she expressed support for the demonstrators and organized solidarity actions among her fellow inmates. The prison authorities responded by imposing even stricter conditions. Ms. Mohammadi was prohibited from receiving calls and visitors. She nevertheless managed to smuggle out an article which the New York Times published on the one-year anniversary of Mahsa Jina Amini's killing. The message was, "The more of us they lock up, the stronger we become." From captivity, Ms. Mohammadi has helped to ensure that the protests have not ebbed out. Narges Mohammadi is a woman, a human rights advocate, and a freedom fighter. In awarding her this year's Nobel Peace Prize, the Norwegian Nobel Committee wishes to honor her courageous fight for human rights, freedom, and democracy in Iran. This year's Peace Prize also recognizes the hundreds of thousands of people who in the preceding year have demonstrated against the theocratic regime's policies of discrimination and oppression targeting women. Only by embracing equal rights for all can the world achieve the fraternity between nations that Alfred Nobel sought to promote. The award to Narges Mohammadi follows a long tradition in which the Norwegian Nobel Committee has awarded the Peace Prize to those working to advance social justice, human rights, and democracy. These are important preconditions for lasting peace. Thank you.
Madam Chair, what impact do you hope that this prize will have on the situation in Iran?
This prize is first and foremost a recognition of the very important work of a whole movement in Iran with its undisputed leader, Narges Mohammadi. The impact of the prize is not for the Nobel Committee to decide upon. We hope that it is an encouragement to continue the work in whichever form this movement finds to be fitting.
This is a person who is imprisoned. What will be the situation in December when she is actually given the prize?
Well, if the Iranian authorities make the right decision, they will release her so she can be present to receive this honor. which is what we primarily hope for. How we will carry out the arrangements, we have a couple of months to plan that.
Stolt from TV2 Norway. The three last year's laureates are receiving treatment from their respective governments following receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. How would you comment on the situation for the last year's winners?
I'm sorry, how is my comment on?
The last year's laureates, some of them in prison, they're still harassed by their governments. How do you comment on that situation?
Well, it just shows, first of all, that democracy is on decline. There are plenty of authoritarian regimes around the world that suppresses opposition. And all these prizes, they illustrate that being a freedom fighter, being in opposition, comes at a very high cost. And of course, Mohammadi and Bialyatsky, they have this in common, that they have been fighting for basic human rights, and it has cost them everything, their lives. They are in prison on long, uncertain prison terms. They are isolated from family, friends, the rest of the world, and the cost for them individually, I think we can hardly imagine.
And what is the signal from the Nobel Committee to the Iranian government?
Well, the signal is listen to your own people. And the signal is sustainable societies have a civil society, have basic democratic rights, and respect individuals' human rights. That is the signal.
Madam Chair, how has the committee reflected on whether or not this prize will affect Nargis Mohammadi's security situation?
This is, of course, impossible for us to predict. She is already in prison. She has, over actually 3 decades since she was a student, led a life with a calculated risk. And she has taken the position that she will do what is right at all costs. But if there's any further repercussions against her, the responsibility for that is at the government or other people who carry out these repercussions.
The war in Ukraine still has great impact for people all over the world. Why has this year's Nobel Peace Prize not reflected on that?
Well, we never comment on the prizes that we do not give, as you implicated in your question to have a comment on why we had not looked in a different direction. This year, we have found it paramount to, first of all, honor this very particular movement in Iran. That is a unique situation. Many have described what has happened during the last year as a revolution. Perhaps that remains to be seen. But what we do see is that a revolution carried out by women is a little bit different than other movements. That is significant, but also it is a global problem to honor the half of the population that is women in several countries around the world.
Mieszko Czarnecki, Gazeta.pl from Warsaw. This year, laureate and prize seems to have much more universal context because women's rights are in danger worldwide. Don't you think that it is an address not only to Iranian government but to many other governments worldwide, not only in Iran but in Central or Eastern Europe, in Africa, in Southern America, and so on?
Absolutely. But I will also say, and I would like to add, that I believe all the Nobel Prizes also have a universal impact. We connect it to one person, one movement, one situation, but there is a universal message of what it takes to create peaceful societies.
Any further questions? Doesn't seem to be the case, so then the press conference is over.
Thank you very much.
原来好的益生菌真的可以帮助入睡。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌是国家认证 AB 克菲尔益生菌，含7种有身份证的专利活菌，能产生伽巴、色氨酸等助眠因子，难怪吃了更快入睡，也睡得更好。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌也是台湾市场上唯一添加克菲尔乳杆菌 M1 的产品。这是由台湾知名的大学季转，对季节敏感、调整体质的朋友，真的是一大福音。还有这支还添加被称为超级食物的羽衣甘蓝萃取物，不少研究都指出十字花科蔬菜有助抗炎及防癌，像是羽衣甘蓝含有高量的叶黄素、贝塔胡萝卜素、维生素 K、维生素 C、叶酸等丰富营养素。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌专利制成，无塑化剂、无重金属、无人工添加物、无410项农药、无香料调味剂、无防腐剂、无色素，7大保证、7大认证，觉得好安心。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Feel Good， 快点购下单！太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌。